We are using AI to literally find more money from their existing trips. My name is Sam Titus. I am the CEO and co-founder of DocChron. We are a trucking fintech company. We started last year, kind of May of last year, coming up a year now. I'm very excited to be part of the show and tell you more about it.
Awesome. What was the original inspiration for the company? Like, what was the final straw where you're like, I need to build this thing?
Sure. So the inspiration really came from being in this space for more than a decade. So I've built 3 other companies before. 2 of them are still in the vertical. I exited out of one of them, and the other one is still I'm part of. So I think the short answer is just being in a vertical long enough and kind of understanding the pain points from a customer perspective. Really, looking from within the industry, we learned that really revenue optimization is something that a lot of shippers have access to tools, but not so much for the carriers. We call carriers basically the trucking companies. So that's what really inspired us to really lean into that problem and build a solution.
Yeah, it's amazing. Like, I used to do some work with Daimler and some of their partners. So I'm always excited to see startups kind of leaning into that space and helping to improve it for providers and companies. So thank you for the work that you do. Shifting gears a little bit, and you've done this a couple times, so you're a great candidate for this. I always find founders are often the best mentors for other founders. So I always like to ask folks, if you were providing one piece of advice for somebody who just started or is maybe thinking about making that leap into entrepreneurship, what would that be?
It's funny you ask because, after being in the space, and not that I'm an expert by any means, but I feel like it is the responsibility that the founders who have gone before, they have a moral responsibility to pass on the information, right? The lessons you've learned from a lot of mistakes that you make. So number one advice is don't be afraid to make mistakes, break things, one of the qualities I think founders must have, I believe, is that draw and that drive to really push forward, right? In spite of the advice, you should take advice from people from around you, but sometimes what it takes is the first guy to just go break things, and it's it'll just give. So that's the number one advice. The other thing, if I may give one more, is
of course,
don't try to do it alone, right? Try to find someone to go with you, right? And it's hard to do. But I think if you can do it with someone else, it's a lot more better.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I don't think I'm talking out of school or sharing any secrets, but you're part of the Oregon AI Accelerator, which is a great group of people to collaborate with and get that kind of peer support. So I'm glad you've kind of found that group to help support you in the journey as well. Speaking of that, like living in the world of AI, which changes day by day, if not minute by minute, and just trying to survive as a founder in the most healthy way that you can. Are there any particular resources, or do you have like a touchstone that you find yourself going back to time and time again? It could be a book, it could be a podcast, it could simply be I need to be around other people, or I need to go to the coast once a month, or I go crazy. Like, do you have something that you use to survive in your role as a founder?
Yeah, I think we all need that, regardless of whether you're founding a company or not, right? I think the mental health and the balance in life, right? The purpose and meaning. I'm an outdoor person. I'm not like a avid hiker or anything, but I spend a lot of time outdoors. Just being in the Pacific Northwest. I mean, it's really just get in your backyard. It's just gorgeous, right? So yeah, spend time outdoors, spend time in nature. Technology can really is interesting. You asked that. Recently, I was listening to a podcast. Fred Armisen is one of my favorite comedians, but he was saying the same things. Like just being outdoors would inspire you in ways that you wouldn't imagine. So a lot of times, I do that. Another thing is, this is not for everybody, but if you have like interest in music, I'm a musician, so I play in the local symphony orchestra here in Vancouver. So it kind of stretches you in a different way. It is creativity, but it's also you're doing it with people, right? And again, I'm going back to the theme of try to find somebody or someone to do it with. That's always has been a touchstone for me. So yeah, that's what I would say.
I love that. I will always take go out and touch grass as advice from founders. I always appreciate folks highlighting that. And then I think you also touch on something that I find super compelling. Most everyone I talk to tends to be fairly well-rounded. They have other interests outside of their startup, and they often use those to kind of balance the stress and creativity and use them to reinvigorate themselves. So I'm really happy to hear that your work as a musician is one of those outlets that enables you to do that. Finally, just closing out, I don't want to let you go without asking, how can we who are listening be most helpful to you and your company right now?
Thanks for asking, Rick. I think one of the important things that we are building right now is just having that validation of our early MVP, minimum viable product. So if you know folks who are in the trucking world, we'd be happy to have them pilot, run a pilot. I know we didn't go into the nitty gritty of what the tool does or anything like that, but what it does is really we are using AI to literally find more money from their existing trips, right? So I'm just simplifying it, but that's the value prop, right? So that's the number one thing that we are working on right now. Like we are talking to people that we know, and because of my contacts in the industry, we already have pilots, fleets using our product, giving us great feedback. But not a lot of folks from Oregon and Northwest, and I would love to really partner with. It doesn't have to be huge companies, right? It could be small. It doesn't matter, because the goal is really for this AI to help fleets of any size to be that intelligent revenue optimization tool. It's like a AI billing assistant that sits on your truck, not just on your phone, but it's connecting with real data and offering value. So that's number one. And we would be going to our fundraising soon. The goal is, since I've done it a couple of times, if you do it too early, you often kind of burn through it unwisely and things like that. So that's spending a lot of time kind of validating it and generating the proof before we scale, if that makes sense. So those are the two asks that we have.
Do you have a startup story to tell? I would love to hear from you.